Hi, friends. Can you believe it? It's the last week of our Sea Life unit. Can't believe it. We've learned so much about sea life. We learned how about fish breathe underwater. We learned how about sea mammals breathe underwater. We learned about the different diets of sea life, omnivore, carnivore, herbivore. We learned about their different habitats and special characteristics. We got a sneak preview last week. This we're going to focus totally on special characteristics of sea life. We're going to focus on how special characteristics might help sea life attract food, protect them against predators, or attract prey, and also how it adds to their species. We're going to focus on many interesting sea life animals this week: the seahorse, the hermit crab, jellyfish, sea turtles, and guess what, friends? You get to vote on the last animal we focus on. We're going to send you an email, or you're going to vote in your Zoom chats on either the shark or the octopus. And that's the last animal we're going to focus on, and how their special characteristics help them survive in the wild. But today we're going to focus on the seahorse. So let's take a look. The seahorse habitats are the coral reefs and seagrass beds in tropical oceans. Wow, we learned about coral reefs last week and how there's a lot of sea life in the coral reefs because of the corals and the abundance of food. We, the seahorse is a carnivore. We learned about the different diets last week, as I mentioned. An omnivore eats both plants and animals. A herbivore eats only plants. And a carnivore eats meat. Seahorse is a carnivore. It eats tiny fish and shrimp. The special characteristics of a seahorse are the male seahorses give birth. You're like, what? Yes. The female, once she has her eggs fertilized, she puts the eggs into the pouch, a special pouch that the male seahorse has. And then the male seahorse expels the eggs from the pouch when it's time to give birth. Camouflage. We talked about camouflage. Camouflage is when an animal changes its body color to blend into the surroundings. We talked about the pygmy seahorse, who changed pink to blend in with the pink coral. So seahorses are the greatest camouflage artists they are. How to avoid, they do that to avoid predators and also to sneak up on food. Now, the seahorse eats its food not by chomping down because it doesn't have any teeth, but it has a tube-like mouth that sucks in the food. And guess what, friends? The seahorse has to constantly eat non-stop because it has a primitive stomach. And you're like, what is a primitive stomach? That's a stomach that really doesn't have much room for storage. Like when we eat, we can store some food away until we expel it. Seahorses don't have room in their stomach for much storage. So that's why they have to constantly eat. They also have binocular vision. Now what you're saying, what is binocular vision? That's when one eye looks this way and another eye looks this way and one eye looks this way and one eye looks this way. They do that so they know what's going on in their surroundings. So they can see predators and also see food. Today we're going to read a book about a special seahorse by Eric Carle. It's called Mr. Seahorse. It is about a seahorse who meets a lot of friends on his way to give birth to his children. Hi friends, today's book is Mr. Seahorse by Eric Carle. Eric Carle is the author and the illustrator. That means he wrote the words and drew the picture. He's a famous author and illustrator. If you like Mr. Seahorse, Eric Carle has a lot of books. He did the Very Hungry Caterpillar, the Grouchy Ladybug. So if you love Eric Carle, you can go to the BookFlix account in the remote learning plan that I gave your parents and click on some of his books. So let's begin. We have another title page. Okay, here we go. Mr. and Mrs. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea. Mrs. Seahorse began to wiggle and twist this way and that. I think something special is about to happen. What do you think, friends? Why is she twisting this way and that? Let's find out. It is time for me to lay my eggs, she said.
Can I help?
Asked Mr. Seahorse. Oh, yes, thank you, said Mrs. Seahorse. She laid her eggs into a pouch on Mr. Seahorse's belly. I'll take good care of our eggs, said Mr. Seahorse. I promise. Now remember, we talked about special characteristics and how it's the boy seahorse that gives birth to the baby seahorses. So the mommy has the eggs, but then she puts the eggs into a pouch on his belly. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a group of trumpet fish hidden in a patch of reeds. Now you're saying, where are the trumpet fish? Do you think the trumpet fish is using a special characteristic? What characteristic are they using? Who said camouflage? You're right. Let's see if we can find them. There they are. They're the trumpet fish. Now, trumpet fish use camouflage to hide away from predators. They're also carnivores. That means they eat meat. Their favorite fish to eat is the damselfish. And one of the tricks they use to catch the damselfish is called shadow hunting. That's when they trail behind their prey like they're their shadow. Also, their habitat is the coral reefs. We talked about the coral reefs last week, right? It's a great place to hang out. Before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. How are you, Mr. Stickleback? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Delighted, replied Mr. Stickleback. I just built a nest, and right away, Mrs. Stickleback laid her eggs into it. Now I'm taking care of them until they hatch. Keep up the good work, said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. Now, a stickleback, the male builds a nest in a sandy bottom near the coral reefs, friends, and he uses plants, and he sticks the plants together with a sticky substance from his kidneys, and it looks like a little nest, and he protects the nest like a territory from other sticklebacks. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a lionfish hidden behind a coral reef. Can you see that lionfish? Can you? Let's look and see. There he is. That's a lionfish. Now, a lionfish is a carnivore. That means it eats meat. And its habitat is the coral reefs. And guess what? The girl lionfish can lay over 2 million eggs a year. Can you imagine? These right here are like venomous spines on top of the lionfish, and it uses it to ward off prey. Not prey, excuse me, friends, predators who are trying to eat them. Before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. How are you, Mr. Tilapia? Asked Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Tilapia couldn't answer. His mouth was full of eggs. I know, said Mr. Seahorse. Mrs. Tilapia laid her eggs. Now you are taking good care of them until they hatch. Mr. Tilapia nodded his head. You must be very happy, said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. Now, with the tilapia, there are over 100 species of tilapia, and they are tropical fish. They like warm waters. Now, one species of tilapia, called the Sauropodon, are biparental. But a biparental means both the male and the female carry eggs in their mouths. And they kind of roll the eggs around their mouth to incubate them. That means keep them warm. Now, in another species of tilapia, the Oreochromis, only the mommy tilapia carries the eggs in her mouth. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a pair of leaf fish hidden among the seaweed. Can you see the leaf fish? They're using camouflage, right? Let's see if we can see them. There they are. Now, the leaf fish is a predator, right? That means it loves to eat other fish. And it's a carnivore. And one of the habitats they like is the Congo River. That's the leaf fish. If I was Mr. Seahorse, I would swim fast away. Before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Curtis?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Perfectly fine," replied Mr. Curtis. "Mrs. Curtis laid her eggs, and I have stuck them on my head. Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch." "You are doing a good job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. Now, a Curtis fish, the male carries the eggs on its head. And you're like, well, how does the egg stay up there? They have like a hook sticking out from their forehead, and that's how the eggs are attached to a hook on his forehead. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a stonefish hidden behind a rock. Can you see the stonefish? You can't? Oh, gee, let's see. There's stonefish. A stonefish is very venomous. It means very poisonous. And it uses camouflage. It means it blends into rocks on the ocean to catch its prey. All right? It has like these little dorsal fins that are spikes, and are quite dangerous to other fish. Its home is the Great Barrier Reef. Once again, coral reefs rule as habitats. Before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Pipe?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Couldn't be better," replied Mr. Pipe. "Mrs. Pipe laid her eggs along my belly. Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch. You should feel proud of yourself," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. Now, a pipefish, the male carries his eggs on its belly until the eggs are ready to hatch. And then when they're ready to hatch, he kind of goes down to the sandy bottom of the reef, and then he kind of shakes them loose. And then they're born. The baby pipes there. Okay? Before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Bullhead?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Tip-top," replied Mr. Bullhead. "Mrs. Bullhead laid her eggs and the eggs hatched. Now I'm babysitting. You are doing a fine job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam away. Sticky. I thought I was going to get through without a sticky page. The time had come for the seahorse babies to be born. Mr. Seahorse wiggled and twisted this way and that. At last the babies tumbled from Mr. Seahorse's pouch and swam away. One baby turned around and tried to come back into the pouch. "Oh no," said Mr. Seahorse. "I do love you, but now you are ready to be on your own." So when seahorse babies are born, their parents don't take care of them. They swim away and they have to be on their own. Can you imagine just being born and you have to do everything for yourself? My, oh my. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed this book, Mr. Seahorse by Eric Carle. There are great videos in the remote learning plan about seahorses and activities that go with this book. Please tell your parents to click on the links.